This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, September the 16th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the show. You'll be speaking with Dave when you pick up the phone to give us a shout to get in the queue to get on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888 590 VOCM, which is 8626. So I guess for me and Sarah Strickland, Brian Medore, stayed up and watched 11 innings of Toronto Blue Jay baseball last night. Great victory over the Tampa Bay Rays, who are always a real thorn on the side of the Blue Jays. Specifically, you got to look at their top pitching prospect, a young fellow named Trey Savage. He was just drafted last year, so this year he played rookie ball, A ball, double A, triple A, and now playing in the major leagues. Looked good too, 5 innings, 9 Ks. The Jays get the win. All right, and 5 games up on the Yankees. Just going to throw out a baseball stat. Loves me a good stat. I just read this one to Dave Williams, and it's about pitching. In 1968, when Bob Gibson was pitching for the St. Louis Cardinals, his starts in June and July: 12 starts, 12 complete games, 12 wins, 8 shutouts, 6 runs allowed. Love a stat. All right, getting some questions about the Canada Games Legacy Fund and the flea market that they held over this past weekend. I didn't go, but I was told that the lineups were huge, and plenty of people disappointed that they didn't get what they had their eyes on when they were able to get inside. So there was all kinds of stuff, and people were wondering about whether things that were not sold and some of the things that are going to move on to the Quebec-hosted games and some of the items that have been donated. And I do know for a fact that a lot of stuff was indeed donated. 600 bunk beds, they were brought into the Mount dormitories for the athletes and coaches. They went to like the Association for New Canadians, Waypoint, Scouts Canada. So the Legacy Fund, there's no real details on how the money's going to be spent as of yet, but the games leave behind some upgraded sporting facilities, which can indeed play a role in what they call sports tourism, now that we have national and internationally accredited facilities to host some competitions. But you want to take it on? We can do it. All right, so the campaign's been on the go for quite a while, and now we're going to the polls October the 14th. Just a couple of questions on signs and door knockers. You know, when I had this lady send me an email last week about door knockers, she was away for multiple days, and we all do the same thing. We leave the porch lights on, and we maybe flick on the radio inside so it gives the semblance that someone is at home. But she came back to find a multitude of these door knockers hanging off her door and jammed into the door jamb itself. So you know full well that just screams, I'm not home. There's people always walking the streets and pulling on car door handles, and whether or not there's someone home and maybe break in and rob whatever you got. So that. And the election signs? Look, there is a science to it, but there's so many. When you add the municipal election to the provincial election, they're getting lost in the shuffle. You know, I understand the mindset of picking the high traffic areas to pop your sign, but there's a few of these spots, the signs are all so jumbled up, I think they're just getting lost, personally. And anyway, they're out there to no end. All right, let's get into the issues. So Premier Hogan yesterday, in launching the Liberal Party campaign, really hung his hat on the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. And we can talk about it, and we should talk about it. And I have said in the past, and I'm going to stick with it, there's obviously some exaggerations on the pro and con side of this particular pathway to a definitive agreement because the MOU is non-binding. So let's compare and contrast. So we know the oversight is what it is at this moment of time. And Tony Wakeham, leader of the PC, saying, in, I guess, rebuttal to Premier Hogan's thoughts on the MOU, is that if his party is successful and he assumes the chair in the 8th floor, that he's going to pause the proceedings to April and definitive agreements. And also the concept of a referendum. I get it. You know, the people should have a say. Is it our say on October the 14th and advance ballots? Or is it when these agreements are finally in the form of contracts and before they're signed, there is some additional layer of whatever, oversight or review or public discourse or debate in the House of Assembly? Sounds appropriate, but the concept of a referendum, is that really the best idea? And here's why I don't think it is. And I'll get in plenty of trouble for this, but even just in casual conversations in my social circles, and when it comes up, and many of my friends are keeping an eye on it, is if I'll ask them, what do you think of it? And if there's things like shag the Liberals, because this is Party A and Party B. This contract is going to extend for 5 decades. So I'm not so sure we are wise to hang our hat on the political parties involved. Do you? Also, it's just the historical distrust of Quebec. I mean, obviously, plenty of people do not want to do business with Quebec. How do I know? Because I'm told all the time. Email and in public conversations. So as much as I hear shag the Liberals, and fair enough if you think shag the Liberals, but the overall sentiment of don't trust Quebec, consequently should not do this deal, does that mean that we would have, for starters, it's extremely complex. It really, truly is. I'm still not sure that I've got a firm grasp on it enough to offer uninformed a vote in full. I think I have some grasp of it. But anyway, you want to talk about the referendum conversation? Let's go. And look, one of the prime concerns, and I understand it, like Trades NL and others, is Quebec historically has been very protective over jobs. There are parts of the MOU that deal directly with jobs, and it's important. We can't let them run roughshod over us, and they do as they see it insofar as jobs. But there's a benefits agreement that's being obviously still negotiated, but that's an important component. And I'm happy to have the upper churchill conversation. Absolutely. Then it's the other issues with which we are all struggling. Many people are grappling with just the broad strokes of cost of living. So absolutely, there's got to be some discussion about cost of living and what can and cannot be done here. But where do we look, right? So the gas tax, which was halved, the provincial portion was halved, is that going to remain in place? Because many people listening to the program this morning may indeed drive. I don't know what anybody can do inside the grocery store, but that's the bane of my existence, is shopping for groceries. And then there's the thought of cutting our taxes. Fair enough. So, income tax cuts. Let's remember that one of the major concerns many people share is the level of debt and the level of deficit. So any cut needs to find savings elsewhere, or we're just going to see the governments borrow more. We're borrowing $4.1 billion this year. Not to say I don't want to pay less tax, but let's be realistic about how we approach these conversations. Reduce the sales tax by 1 percentage point like they did in Nova Scotia. A consumption tax is a pretty good place to start, I would suggest. Then cut business taxes, raise the small business threshold. What do you think? Because cost of living, I think, will indeed drive many people's votes to one candidate or one party or another. And you want to take it on? We can do it. All right, and then there's plenty of conversation about the provincial portion of tax on home heating, which I think is not going away anytime soon. And then it's the way that Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro and the meters. Of course, they tell us that it cannot be done without impacting the rates that we all pay. Dennis Brown, consumer advocate, and of course the chair of the Independent Oversight Committee, he says it's not true elsewhere. Utilities in other parts of the country have been able to install these smart meters, which make a lot of sense for us as ratepayers, and I would imagine make some sense for the utilities as well into the long run when we talk about peak demand times. So many people who may indeed put their dishwasher on when they go to work probably won't do it maybe until they go to bed, when it's the peak load is not required. So anyway, Mr. Brown says it can be done. It's been done elsewhere. Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro say they're obliged by legislation to provide power at the least cost for consumers, and people have questions about that too, but you want to take it on? We can do it. Oh, and a statement from Mr. Brown, having heard a conversation between myself and Tress Crosby yesterday about quarterly reports, and Mr. Crosby's assertion is that Cabinet is no longer being briefed. Mr. Brown says that's simply not true. Cabinet briefings continue. Now, I suppose plenty of things are on hold for the next 28 days or so while we get through the election, but that came from Mr. Brown yesterday on the heels of that conversation. All right. So back to school, what we've seen in our school neighbourhood is, of course, it's a K-6 school, so I don't see a lot of what people refer to as the e-bikes and the scooters and what have you. But if you drive around town, they're everywhere. They're super popular, and they look really fun. RCMP is reminding the e-bike riders, you have to wear a helmet. Please do that. And they're also reminding, if you're on one of these vehicles, you have to abide by the rules of the road, which I see not being abided by all the time. So you can't ride on the sidewalk. Number one. Now, yes, you put yourself perilously close to the vehicles that are traveling on the roadway, but if you have one of these bikes, the Highway Traffic Act applies to you. So I see them everywhere, and they, once again, look super fun, but they have to be abided by. And here's one that I don't know if we're doing anything to measure. Motors cannot be more powerful than 500 watts with a top speed of 32 kilometers an hour. I've never clocked any of these rigs, but I've seen some that look super quick. They certainly appear to be able to travel 32 kilometers an hour or more, but anyway, there you go. Let's talk about it. All right, I'm back to school and the education accord. Man, there's a lot to this. So 18-month process, plenty of contributors. And, we talked about the 4 pillars. The health and well-being in education environments, obviously, critically important. They focus a lot on early learning and childhood development. Talk about engagement in the classroom, transformation in the learning environments, tailoring delivery of curriculum to where the student is. Talk about post-secondary education, learning across the lifespan. All really, really important things to modernize and transform the system. And how are we supposed to digest the issue that was broken by Patrick Butler over at Radio Canada regarding some 15 fictional citations in the report itself? Drs. Goodnow and Burke, the co-chairs, I can't put words in their mouth or sentiments in their brain, but I'm sure they're quite frustrated with this, and they've offered their apologies, and they're rectifying it as we speak. It's been taken down offline where they try to figure this stuff out. And hopefully it doesn't wreck the credibility of the report because it's just too important. But human nature plays a role here. When you hear that there's 15 made-up sources, 15 fictional citations, it just bleeds into people's brains. Right? What will they think about the rest of the report? And I have no reason to believe there's anything but a report done in good conscience, trying to achieve the best outcomes in the K-12 system. But you and I know these stories do have an impact on people's minds. It would be nice to know how it happened. Now, I'm not saying heads should roll, someone needs to get fired, but we need to know what happened here. Because the popular sentiment that I hear and read about is that it's the suggestion of artificial intelligence. Like, if that's not true, okay, but how did it happen? It just seems the strangest thing. We've seen reports released here south of the border that are critically important to public health, to public safety, to education, to the economy, to then, lo and behold, find that some in part or some in full, and I'm not saying this about the education accord, have been generated by AI. It's going to be more harmful than it is beneficial in the long run. Yes, AI can be extremely helpful in many walks of life. I'd also ask the question about just how expansive is the usage of artificial intelligence amongst all layers and levels of government. Because it can spit out some pretty good work in rapid fashion, but it can also produce garbage, which is less than helpful. If you want to take it on, we can do it. And for things that fall by the wayside sometimes, I don't think I've heard a peep from the government or the Department of Fisheries as it pertains to the big story last week in the fishery of Royal Greenland trying to buy sea cucumbers from a foreign vessel for 50 cents as opposed to the negotiated panel price of 69 cents. Consequently, other smaller processors say, hey, if they're getting away with it, then I'm going to do it too. So it had a ripple effect across the industry. The province holds all the cards insofar as the regulations inside their license. So what about this? Because it won't be sea cucumbers only. It may indeed manifest itself into ignoring the negotiated price on other species into the future. It's a big one. This is a bigger story than I think we've given it credit for. People talk about foreign ownership, foreign involvement in the fishery, whether it be in the processing sector, and people still talk about controlling agreements and what have you. But where is the government on this one? Because it can't be the case into the future. It simply can't be. All right, you want to take it on? We can do it. Similar front, this for the great outdoors. I read with interest this morning, back and forth, to and fro, about moose hunting season in all the various moose management areas. A different season here than there is in Labrador, but it's the whether or not it's too early or whether or not it's the right time to open the season. People talking about maybe the second week of October versus opening up the beginning of September. So I don't know enough about it to offer any real point of view, but for the moose hunters out there on either side of that, interesting conversation and the reasons why it might be good or bad. Let's talk about it. All right, Parliament resumed yesterday. Mr. Poilievre, of course, took his place back in the House of Commons after winning a by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. I don't know, question period sometimes feels like a bit of a waste of time, even though I know it's important. So they'll go back and forth on a variety of issues, and I just want to talk about a couple here this morning. And this is going to be a big one in the future because we're talking huge monies. And this is in military and defense procurement. So it had been relatively fractured into the past. It was handled by a bunch of different departments: National Defense, Public Services and Procurement, Innovation and Treasury Board. Now there's a centralized opportunity for the procurement process to unfold. That's probably a good thing. So insofar as money, we're going to spend an extra $9 billion this year to hit the 2% of GDP. On the road to 5% of GDP, 3.5% on spending, 1.5% on infrastructure. All right. One of the big spends being considered now, well, I guess a couple of the big ones, is the country reconsidering the contracts to purchase F-35s. That's one thing. And then we know the country is going to purchase submarines. It's coming down to two bidders, a German company and a South Korean consortium. Interesting stuff. So they're all going to have to meet all the obvious targets insofar as military preparedness and all the technical issues that have to be addressed, and apparently both bids have. Then I think it boils down to probably one of the most important things is we've done a pretty lousy job in the past of domestic procurement, making sure that Canadian companies are carefully considered, making sure that there's as many jobs as possible created in the country with defense contracts. So this is going to be a key linchpin here about how many jobs could be created, bang for the buck, even things like maintenance and service at Bull Arm, for instance. So, but the Germans, fascinating stuff, because we know there's been all sorts of conversations with the Germans about things like hydrogen, which has been pretty much stalled, but we can talk about it. Things like liquefied natural gas. And then South Korea, and their bid is also fascinating. You know, just think about how they've basically, and not my words, their words, feel like they're getting chased out of the United States. So doing business with the South Koreans on this front might be bigger than just submarines. So, I mean, it'd be nice to be in the room to hear all the pitches up close and personal, or to be a fly on the wall, but that is going to be pretty critical decisions, because we are talking about the pathway to spending like $150 billion a year on defense. So if that comes with the actual massive economic shot in the arm regarding Canadian jobs, Canadian companies, obviously a big one. All right. I'm not so sure what people think of this, but, you know, people might refer to it as an act of political politeness. And others question what we're really doing and the idolatry associated with the tragic and senseless murder of Charlie Kirk, who does not and did not deserve to die because of what he thought or said. You can talk about his character, what you think about what his contributions, good or bad, but he continually bashed this country. He did. No matter if you like it or not. I mean, here's one of the quotes. Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country, as you well know, that prides itself on being polite. And yesterday, lo and behold, a standing ovation for Charlie Kirk in Parliament. It just seems so odd to me. And people are offering some pretty vociferous opinions on it, but that happened, which is really quite strange to me. I don't know what you think. And then it's just the way to look. Political violence is a thing. It's an extremely dangerous thing, obviously. And it's not just the Americans. We have to be careful to pretend that we're so much better than anybody else, because in many forms, we're kind of not. So when we talk about political violence, it would be really reassuring, if political leaders came at it with any semblance of decency and waiting for things to be fully understood, evidence to be presented, so we know exactly what we're talking about. And then it's the concept of, in the United States, free speech, and in this country, freedom of expression, which comes with consequences. That's how things work. But the thought police and the speech police, it's a really bizarre aftermath to, again, a senseless tragedy. And here's a quote. And we're talking about people talk about hate speech and what have you. Here, again, direct quote. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. And I know that's an American concept, but we have a very similar approach to it in this country. And you know who said that? Charlie Kirk. So we can talk about political violence. Like, remember, in this country, a disgruntled sausage maker made his way into the grounds of Rideau, armed to the teeth to speak with Justin Trudeau. Sure. Last year, we talked about the amount of money spent on security, whether it be for the Prime Minister and across the board for parliamentarians. Parliamentarians from all parties were told to not take walk-in appointments anymore. Why? Because the uptick in threats. And again, this wasn't just people threatening the Liberals. This was people threatening parliamentarians across the board. So we've got an issue here that we should be able to discuss maturely in this country, because whether or not we like it, or I like it, or you like it, what happens in the States does become part of the conversation in this country. It does, economically speaking, social issues, whatever the case may be, and yes, political violence, which of course is a much different kettle of fish south of the border than it is here, thankfully so. But amazing to me, some of the things that are going on. What do you think? We're on Twitter, or VOCM Open Line. Follow us. Oh, just a very quick one. So this is also about government at all levels and the protection of my personal information. Every single piece of digital infrastructure is under siege all the time. We're told that by different levels of government, different representatives, and we know it to be true. Then you see a story like Tim Hortons joining forces with Canadian Tire to join forces on their mobile applications. It just kind of reminded me of when the Covert Alert app, which had pathetic uptick, spent way too much money on it, far too little paperwork to follow exactly what went on there, how the contract got let, what have you. But people were deathly afraid to use it because government would be tracking you, which of course couldn't happen. It didn't use GPS, it used Bluetooth. But I don't think we give much consideration to these big corporations and the amount of information they had belong to us and actually literally tracking your movements. But we don't care about it, and I think we probably should. So whether it be Tim Hortons or Canadian Tire, they're doing this, of course, to attract the customer base, but they're also doing it to share and to sell our personal information. And it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. We're on Twitter, we're VOCM Open Line, follow us there. Email address is openon@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're on the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 2. Good morning, Tom. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
That's bad, I suppose. How about you?
Oh, I'm not too good. I woke up with a cold this morning, so my voice is a little thick. I'm going to be quick because I'm waiting to meet my auditors in a few minutes. 2 quick points, Patty. The first one deals with registered disability savings plans. I think most people in the province have my number on speed dial, so I've got a few calls about them. And I spoke with Minister Corab, who's been extremely helpful, as well as Minister Davis, who's the new minister responsible for persons with disabilities. And what this has to do with is that a lot of people have registered disability savings plans, and they are in receipt of income support. These plans were probably set up by parents, family members, and in one particular case, the person got me a call saying that income support called them wanting to know the balance of his registered disability savings plan. So, of course, all kinds of flags went up with him. And, of course, I thought it was a bit strange, too, as to why they would be doing this. But after speaking with Minister Davis's office and with the income support people, I found out that it is indeed legitimate. The proceeds, should somebody decide to take money from their registered disability savings plan, it will not affect their income support.
No, because it's simply not considered income.
That's right. The only portion of it, there is a portion of it that the government contributes to it that is considered income. The government portion, the grants and things, like, for example, you put in $1,500, the government puts in $2,500, that $2,500 portion is taxable. And that sets off flags with income support who see that because you're reporting it, and they wanted to know where it comes from. That's all. They just want to know where it comes from. But it still won't affect their income support.
Right.
Okay?
There are 2 different things, though, and it's an important distinction. Taxable income is one thing. How it impacts your income support is another. So it will not be clawed back. It does not have an impact. You will pay taxes on it, but it doesn't mean all of a sudden if you earn, what's the threshold, $42,404, something like that. If you have an extra $1,000, it will not impact your access, your eligibility for income support.
And that's the point I want to make. So, and I want people to be aware of that. And I've got a bunch of calls about it, one gentleman in particular, and I'll call him back this morning just to let him know that he can give this information to them, and it won't affect his income support. The second point I want to make rather quickly is that yesterday, once again, I drove my friend, the doctor, to the airport, who's on her way to Ottawa for more testing. Now, this has been going on for 3 years, for her having to travel back and forth to Ottawa for testing, because there's no one in this province that can test doctors who are immigrants. And I find that simply unbelievable. Here we are trying to recruit doctors from outside the province. They come in, they are fully qualified where they're coming from, and we understand there's got to be a process. But in order for them to get certified. In this particular, my friend's case, this is the second trip to Ottawa to get certified. She has a friend who came from the same country as she came from, who's been here for 3 years, jumped through every hoop, did every test, passed every test, and in the end waited for someone to be able to fully certify her. And she couldn't wait anymore. She went to Edmonton and went to work the next day. So I raised this point because somebody in the healthcare system have got to address this. You know, here's this lady, she's a pediatrician. She could have been seeing 20 kids a day. And for the last 3 years, she's been going through this process. Surely to goodness, we can find somebody from our medical school who can certify doctors. I find it simply unbelievable. And, you know, I've called the health department's office, I've called the minister's office, I've called the College of Physicians and Surgeons trying to find out some clarification as to why we have no one in this province who could actually certify a doctor as a doctor. It's crazy. So maybe by raising it on your show, somebody from the health department or the College of Physicians and Surgeons can call in and clarify this and find out what in the heck is going on. It's
a good question. I mean, because we were told we were actively recruiting doctors, say, for instance, in Ireland. You know, so there's a few things. Like, there's a story out there now about a Royal College giving accreditation to things like Munn's pediatric residency program at the med school, which is potentially going to move to the Janeway. That's one thing. But certification of doctors and other healthcare pros like nurses in other parts of the country, they are fast tracking it. BC is super aggressive. If you recruited as a registered nurse, say, for instance, in the province of British Columbia, by the time you get the move done and you sign the papers, off to work you go.
Yeah, and this is what happened with this lady. She had done everything, and she couldn't stay. She couldn't do it anymore because she had no income. So off she goes to Alberta, and they put her to work the next day. You know, to me, look, if I think it'd be a joke. Somebody told me that, I'd say, don't be silly. That can't be true. That can't possibly be true. That with a medical school in our province, we can interview people and say, yeah, we think you're a doctor, go to work. So, you know, and again, I'm at my wit's end about this. So hopefully somebody will be listening to this who can clarify it. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but man, oh man, I can't find one.
I'm not sure what it would be. And it's an important point because how many people have been recruited? They get here, they sit and they sit and they sit and they wait and they wait and they write exams and they wait some more and then they maybe get to go to work versus what probably happens more often than not. They come, they wait, they get fed up and they leave.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what's happening.
Appreciate the time.
That's it. That's my points for this morning. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem, Tom. All the best.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. Before we get to the break, let's go to line number 6. James, you're on the air.
This is Jim. I lost a set of keys there on Signal Hill.
Okay.
Last Tuesday. I just wondered if anybody picked them up. They can call my number. 1709 765 9782.
So I'm assuming this is a set of car keys with maybe house keys, whatever, on the ring. Okay.
A set of Nissan. It says Nissan right on the keys.
Okay. If you picked up a set of Nissan keys on Signal Hill anytime between now and last Tuesday, we know who owns them. Give us a call or give James a call at 709-765-9782.
Yep. Thanks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Have a good day.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll talk provincial election, the MOU. Maxine's got a terrible story. We've exchanged some emails the last couple of days about the wanton vandalism of all things, a community garden. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Harry, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you today?
Very well. How about you?
I want to thank you for taking my call. I started to review the MOU when it came out first, and I thought this was something that, well, it affects me, it affects every Newfoundlander, so I was going to read it and I was going to participate. Well, I tried to read it, and I tried to read it again, and I made all kinds of notes and asked all kinds of questions, and I don't know if you can recall, but I called you and told you I was totally confused. And then I called again and I said, you know what we should have here is an independent review. And then I decided, well, it's too confusing for me to be fear in making any kind of comment. So I was going to observe and see what happens and see what unfolds. So if I may, I'd like to make a few comments into what I see up to date.
Go right ahead, sir.
So the first group that seems to come out of the woodwork was the Danny Williams group. And I sort of think back and I look at it and I say, well, every Newfoundlander is asked to sign this agreement. So every Newfoundlander has a right to make a comment to our government, because they're the ones that are going to sign the bottom line. So the first ones to come out is what I call the old-timers. They're the guys that have been so used to leading Newfoundland that they're like the parents and the grandparents. They're the ones that tells you, now slow down, don't jump in there without looking at it, and make sure you got your seatbelt on. And so they're the cautious bunch, and that's okay. They relay that concern to our governor or to our government, who's going to sign the deal. Then the next group that came out was the group of 9 who are business people. And I refer to those guys, maybe they're like the rich relatives. They're the guys that are going to make the money in building these big projects and hiring all the people. And they say that, look, the deal is good. Let's go for it right away. Let's get this economy going. And that sort of makes sense. The little canary in the gold mine, I think, was maybe that guy who resigned, because he may have sent out a little message saying, listen, guys, this committee that I got set up is not going to quite do what we thought it was going to do. We don't have any say about conditions and that. We just got to write down exactly what Quebec and the government so far to date have agreed to. So I say, okay, well, who else are going to call in? And then you get some people calling in that know a little bit about a lot of the agreement, and they make comments. And then you have people who know a lot about a little bit of agreement, and they'll call in. And then you got people that don't know anything, who just want to badmouth and use foul language and undermine people, which adds absolutely nothing to the conversation. So then I think about me and all the rest of the guys who don't understand what's going on. And we know that this is going to be affecting everyone. So the guys that are not going to call in, the guys that are not going to voice their opinion, are going to be the guys sitting down saying, Jesus, it's more expensive to, or should I stay home and pay the light bill, or stay in a mall, or why isn't there more nurses being hired? Why don't we have more revenue coming into Newfoundland? These are the people that could really benefit from a good agreement on Churchill. So I would ask and speak to those people and say, listen, Premier Hogan has said he's going to put the election on this MOU. So why don't we just put on our Facebooks, put on X, put on and share it with your friends, no MOU without a review. And at least then somebody knows that the people who are concerned, people who are going to be affected by this, we're not all politicians and elections and businessmen and rich, but we all have a say. And just by doing that one little thing, put it on your Facebook, put it on X, put it on whatever communication you use, write a letter, but just say no MOU without a review. Because the deal that Smallwood did, a lot of us who lived through it, I'm 76 years old, who lived through it, I was one of the guys that said, Jesus, if they'd only had put down that escalation clause, that wouldn't have been a bad deal. Why didn't somebody think about it? And then when we had the Muskrat fiasco, we had a premier who decided it was a good idea, and then everybody else sort of jumped on the bandwagon and said, oh no, that's a boondoggle. So what's the best way to make sure that that's a boondoggle? put the fox in charge of the hen house, and I guarantee it's going to be a boondoggle. But that's besides the point. But my point is that the guy that is listening, who don't need to know what the definitive agreements are, he don't need to know what all the ins and outs are, but he should be concerned that he gets the best deal possible.
Sure.
And he has...
Just a couple of comments. Regarding Muskrat, what we've figured out in the LeBlanc inquiry is that we were all operating half-cocked, half-informed. They purposefully, willfully withheld really meaningful, important information from everybody, including the cabinet. I mean, it's shocking when you think about it and say it out loud. So that feels a little bit different than what we're dealing with here now, just in my personal opinion. And an independent review.
That's true.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I'm saying that irrespective of what happened in Muskrat Falls, the only thing that I learned from Muskrat Falls was there was a review done. One very clear instruction that came out of that was that Newfoundland better not get into anything else again over $50 million without having independent review.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It's one of the key recommendations from LeBlanc. And I don't even know if that so-called independent review is better now on an MOU or better then on a definitive agreement. Before we put pen to paper, is to have the actual nitty-gritty for review. Because some of the high-level stuff here, we're basically asking let's just pick a company, Goldman Sachs. We'll be basically asking them to form an opinion on a non-binding agreement that has not fleshed out all of the real nitty-gritty details in full, in black and white. So... Right. At that point, I think it's probably a really good idea for an additional layer of discourse, debate, and review, because right now we're asking some major outlet and some heavy hitter to review 30 pages of what may or may not be the best deal ever. And we're basically just asking for an opinion from people who were not involved. So I'm not disputing that it can be very helpful for the public's understanding and the public's comfort or trust in the deal. But I think when it's in contract form, it's probably a little bit better for all of us. What do you think?
I agree 100%. And maybe the term MOU is not right. Maybe it should be no deal, no formal deal without a review. Because like you say, right now, it's just that. It's a memorandum of understanding saying, I'm going to buy your house with this condition and that condition and all this. But none of those conditions have been met. No final negotiation has been made. But what my concern is that Premier Hogan is going in here believing that everybody is supporting him, I would assume. And I think it's important that the general public, just in some little way, not having to make a public speech or doing anything fantastic, just write a little note that he hears it, because if you put it on Facebook, everybody hears it. Put it on X, put it on anything. But just let them know that we are watching and we want a reviewed final deal. And I think it's going to be good. And, I read the old-timers letters, and I read the businessman letter, and I don't see a whole lot of disagreement. Nobody's saying don't deal with Quebec. Nobody's saying don't have a deal. They've got their own little twist to it. And by the way, I never heard the businessmen say they don't agree with a review. So I think there's a whole lot more in common than there is to fight about. But everybody that phones in, understandably, has their own motivation. They've got their own. But we should have a common goal of getting a good deal that will help the people in the future of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Fair enough. I mean, ultimately, that's what's important to me. If this was a conversation about Party A negotiating with Party B, as opposed to us at Quebec, and the Liberals and the Coalition Avenir Quebec, I think the conversation would feel different and sound different. I really, truly believe that. So we can keep talking about it, and we should. I'm only concerned with being as accurate as possible. Just based on my understanding, the contributions of callers, we're going to have to try to put the facts on the table as it pertains to the MOU. We can surmise and paint hypotheticals, and there are probably important conversations too, like federal government involvement, like the possibility sometime in the future for this mythical east-west energy corridor, free flow of power. But to not include it is just sort of putting our head in the sand, which I don't think is a very good idea. Harry, anything else quick before I have to go?
No, I'll let you go.
Good to have you on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Harry.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I have no idea where we are. Is it break time, Dave? Yeah, let's do that, and Dave will tell me who we're speaking with right after this. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Take more to the Liberal candidate running in Placentia West Bellevue. That's Brian Keating. Brian, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call today.
No problem at all.
I just want to do a little bit of a clarification. I had several calls in the last couple of days about the local service districts and people wanting to amalgamate those local service districts together. I just want to clear the air and say that there's no way that the Liberal parties are interested in that unless the local service districts themselves are interested in it. And we would love to work with them if that's something he wants to do. But with all the beautiful communities in this district, from Bellevue to Chance Cove to Parker's Cove, all those areas, we are not interested in forcing anybody to become amalgamate with other towns, nearby towns, unless they want us to help them do that. We love each individual town. They're all unique in their own personal ways. And I just want to make sure that people know that's not in my plan or the Liberal Party's plan to do that, because we all understand that all local service districts and large and small municipalities got financial burdens and financial challenges, and we're hoping that I guess we are going to work with them to try to relieve some of that in the near future. But Paddy, mostly I just want to make sure that the listeners out there know that there's no way that the Liberal Party is interested in forcing anybody or any community or any LSD to do something they're not in agreement and working together with them.
I'm pretty sure, look, I can't speak for anybody else, but it feels like some of those questions or concerns emanate from the fact that there was a long exercise in trying to evaluate what regional governments might look like. The 25 different regions that could collaborate on services and identify redundancies, work together. Because at some point, even just based on aging demographic, lots of incorporated municipalities and lots of LSDs are going to need into the future to cooperate. Now, when the government said we're just going to stop this exercise, because the pushback in part, or maybe in full, came from the LSDs. And part of that problem was they were not involved in the initial working groups at municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, so they kind of felt like they were on the outside looking in the entire way. So I guess that's where a lot of that comes from.
Oh, most definitely. But right now there's some LSDs in my district and Placentia West Bellevue that are already working together, like fire departments are joined together. And that's a great stride because financially, we all can't stand alone. We got to work with our neighbors to make a better service for the district. And I agree. When municipalities in Newfoundland came out with, try to figure out these different zonings and different regionalization of stuff, that was one division alone. But that's not our plan. The only plan that we have is to work with every local service district, every municipality to better their lifestyle and their services in the near future and in the years to come.
Yeah, and then there's a different way that LSDs are handled versus incorporated municipalities too, insofar as things like cost sharing models and those types of things, which, I get the argument that LSDs make that we don't want to get involved with an incorporated municipality to pay extra fees in the form of property taxes for additional services we do not get. But that can't be a broad stroke that applies to every single circumstance in the province, because it's simply not true. There are ways where people can see enhanced services. And you mentioned fire services. I don't even know why we allow communities to go without contracts for fire protection. I just don't get it. I mean, you need every single resident in every single part of that community to say yes to pay an additional fire services fee, fire protection fee. If one person says no, they don't do it. Consequently, if I say yes, my neighbour says no, his house catches on fire and burns mine down, then where are we?
And I agree. And like I said, we all know how important fire services are now. And we all know that the fire service needs are changed dramatically with all the wildfires. And I do believe that we can work it out between all LSTs and communities to make sure that fire protection is there. Like even waste management. Like, as you know, there's a Bjorn Placentia West area up here that even like waste management picking up, that seems to be working. Home garbage collection and stuff. But there's so many variables that got to come in play. But the only thing I want to make sure is that letting all the LSDs, the local service districts, and communities know we want to keep your own identities, but we want to make sure that it's safe. Your districts are safe. Your districts are protected. And like you said, your needs sometimes are not affordable by yourself, and maybe there's ways that we can communicate between the different districts and the different towns. But my biggest thing of the day is to let you know that we're going to keep the identity of rural Newfoundland and Labrador, and we're going to make sure that we involve the people. The people's voice is what we are led by.
Brian, very quickly, quick question before I get to the news. So the leader of your party, Premier Hogan, has said that the election is mostly about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. The most popular sentiment in opposition to just fast-tracking to April with the contracts is questions about oversight. Do you think there's any additional oversight, whether it be over the MOU or the final definitive agreements, before pen goes to paper? Do you think we need to do more to evaluate the deal?
Well, like Premier Hogan said, he's going to evaluate the deal and make sure, and if the deal is not suitable and acceptable to Newfoundland and Labrador, the best deal that we can get, he's not going to sign it. Right now, that's where I'm very new to this campaign and stuff. All I know that Muskrat Falls and stuff, if you look at the people that are standing out against Muskrat Falls now, the Danny Williamses and Ches Crosby's. Remember, Muskrat Falls was under their leadership, and I'd like to ask I'd like to ask Danny Williams, and I also like to ask the leader of the opposition, if you had the same opportunity, would you run with this ball? And if he says no, then ask why did he run with the ball so much the last time? All the consultation on Muskrat Falls, and like I said, everybody knows I was one of the site managers there with Andrews Hydro. I'll let you know right now, the deal got to be reviewed, and like the Premier says, he's going to review it with expert input from people way more educated on those kind of contracts and deals by myself. And once he knows there's a great deal for Newfoundlanders and brings prosperity to Newfoundland and Labrador, then yes, I think it'll be a good deal. But until that is done, until Premier Hogan and the panel decides that it's a great deal, I guess, like he said, it won't be signed.
I guess we'll all find out at the same time. Appreciate the time, Brian. Good luck out there.
Thank you so much, my friend. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. There we go. Very quickly, Dave just whispered in my ear that Robert Redford died. He's 89 years of age. I loved Robert Redford. I really loved The Sting, number one. But just think about some of the movies. They're just top it. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. All the President's Men, which is a fantastic film. Ordinary People. A River Runs Through It. And what's the one where he plays Roy Hobbs? The Natural. Right? Another good flick. Anyway, Robert Redford dead at 89. Let's take a break. For those of you in the queue, we appreciate your patience. We'll get to you right after this. Don't go away. Oh, welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Eugene, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, sir. First of all, thank you to you and David and VOCM for the many times that you've took my call. And I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
No problem.
And I was talking about, I just came from the 50-plus convention in Gander. Yes, I'll talk about elections too, and there's on the go now, as you know, starting today. And I hope it all works out for whatever parties, whatever MHAs are just waiting for their district. I've called many, many times, and my topic of interest, the majority of the time, was moose vehicle accidents and air ambulance service. Because I have been involved with the air ambulance since 2018, and that's chaired the group, air ambulance medical transport group. And Paddy, I get those handshakes, and I'm not bragging. Many, many handshakes at that 50-plus convention, about 350 people, saying, Eugene, we hear you on the Open Line show with Paddy. You got a good cause, whether it is trying to save people's lives from moose vehicle accidents, or trying to save lives from your air ambulance based in Central, or where it's closer to the patient. And they said it makes so much sense, but you have trouble getting the government to listen. And I do. I have trouble getting the government, we have trouble getting the government to listen. The government is in power, plus the opposition. Now I'm digging. Because what should be happening? We were trying to get a program put in place, Paddy. I'll start with the moose vehicle accidents first. We had a program put in place in 2012. Signage, grub off the brush, cut the brush, scrub it, seed it, and fence it were absolutely necessary. So we got 23 kilometers completed since then. What a kick into you-know-what. That is terrible. I mean, we got 140,000 moose. We're having loved ones killed, like the two 19-year-olds killed there recently. What a crime. What a crime. And we had 660 accidents, I think it was last year. I mean, why didn't the Liberals take hold of this and to use the program that we had in place in 2012 and continue with the moose fencing? If you're going to keep these number of moose in the province, for the love of God, please try to save our lives. We have lost too many loved ones. I have 8 family members of my own in moose at vehicle accidents, and the list goes on. So why, if the government that's in place now is not going to do something, I know there's going to be shortly, and there's going to be change of government, or maybe, I don't know. But anyway, why isn't the opposition saying, this is what we got to do? We got to put a program in place to do what these people are asking for. Eugene Nippard, this Concerned Citizens Group, and these concerned families. Why aren't we trying to save these people's lives? There's lives gone that shouldn't have never been gone. The brush right next to the highway. And I tell you, I get very emotional about this because I was bust up pretty bad myself. And then we switch it, because I don't want to be too long. Then we switch it to the air ambulance. We've been trying to get air ambulances based closer to rural Newfoundland. And about 90% or more, I'd say, at that convention was from rural Newfoundland. And what did they do? They just announced $560,000 to PEL to put air ambulances in St. John's and Goose Bay. Holy cow. We just had a PEL in Goose Bay for the last few years. And about 75% of the time, they had no personnel to operate the planes. I mean, and have 4 air ambulances like they are now, and looks like they're going to do it again. What a kick into you-know-what. So you got 4 air ambulances based on the Avalon where they're not needed. And we got people who say waiting in Wallbush, dying, because they're waiting on an air ambulance. I tell you, it's just not good enough. Listen, opposition, whatever color you are, please support the people that's got loved ones killed and is very concerned, and the general public out there. More can be done, and you're not doing it, and it's just not good enough. I don't care what color your party is, you're just not doing good enough for the people of this province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And Paddy, that's my verdict for today, and I tell you, it's very emotional for me because, like you know, I have called you many times, I've called Randy Sims or whoever's in there, and you know what? The government is not listening. They haven't listened since 2012, and I don't know why. And we don't know why. The public don't know why. The people that are shaking my hands don't know why. Eugene, what's wrong with the government? I don't know, Paddy. Anyway.
I appreciate the time, Eugene. Thank you.
It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. And, you know, whoever is out there that can control this and not doing it and got those loved ones killed like those 19-year-olds, hang your head because you're guilty. Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, my buddy. God bless you.
Thanks, Eugene. I will say that just that bit of moose fencing that's been newly installed here on the East Coast, it does give you a sense of a bit more comfort. I mean, the last time I went out the highway, to see moose standing outside the fence looking at the highway as opposed to running across the highway, there's something to it, obviously. Let's go to line number 4. Maxine, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to speak about our community garden and just a little history about the garden. This garden was started by Brenda Halley, who worked with Newfoundland Health many years ago, and it was to do with wellness and connection to help people get well in a non-judgmental environment. Brenda worked, mental health and addictions at that time. So this garden expanded over the years and has included people from a variety of walks of life, and everybody has been welcome in the garden. We recently joined a partnership with Richard's Legacy with Tina Davis, and we have their members come in as well for wellness. So this garden has a total of 13 beds plus a greenhouse on the grounds of the Anglican Cathedral, St. John the Baptist, which is in Ward 2. Last Friday, when the group met, we discovered torn-up plants, potatoes, kale, peas, carrots, lettuce, and cabbage. Some of them were salvageable, some of them were not. Needless to say, like, the whole group is devastated because this is many meals for people that have been destroyed. And the garden has provided many families with food, as anyone in the area was welcome to come and take vegetables as they needed them. And, you know, just ask to take what you need and leave the rest. And, you know, like every year we always do a fall Thanksgiving and we do a Christmas dinner and we always use all of our own veggies. Well, that's not going to be able to happen this year. And, I mean, we have 30 to 35 people usually attend those meals. So, you know, that's a lot of meals that people are not going to get this year. Plus the fact that as crops ripen, the group gets to benefit from them. So right now there's a lot of things that we won't get the benefit of. And, you know, we're all struggling with food insecurity and trying to provide, you know, healthy food options. And this is not about food. This was pure vandalism because the plants were just torn up and thrown down. You know, there's absolutely no need for anybody to be doing this in this time, you know, when we're all trying to scrape by and provide healthy food for our families. You know, I'm still devastated. And so that was Friday we discovered this. And then I was at the garden yesterday, and, you know, there was more lettuce torn out and just thrown. And it was just, you know, over a couple of days, over the weekend. And, you know, like, I don't know, you know, we're at a loss. I mean, the RNC can't do anything, really. I have put in a file, but, I mean, it goes into the stats as a vandalism. And, you know, I don't know what else to do. Brenda Halley started this group, as I said, and although she's not really associated right now with the group, we have been trying to keep it going because it has helped with all of our wellness. And I know that she is currently running in Ward 2. Now, I will say that, you know, not all of us belong to St. John's. Not all of us belong to the downtown core. So, you know, we're a variety of people from the St. John's and surrounding area who just love to come and get well in the garden.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an unbelievable act of vandalism. You know, it's one thing to spray graffiti, and that's bad enough, but I mean, just imagine, and what's the likelihood that some of those people, whether they were youngsters or otherwise, were actually on the receiving end of some of the food grown in that garden? You know, what about the likelihood that their nan or pop got some food from that garden, and yet that's what they did? It's disgraceful. It really, truly is.
Yeah, I mean, we were just like, couldn't believe it, right? We were just all in awe in a sense of, but then, you know, devastated as well, right? And like really upset because, you know, a lot of work goes into maintaining the garden, and we all work together.
Yep. And
come together as a group, you know, to work the garden.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that it happened. So, I mean, of course, that maybe robs some of the motivation for people to put their energy into maintaining the garden and providing the food. Hopefully that's not the case, because obviously it was needed over the years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, you know, I will say that this is the first time, and, I mean, I've been involved for a number of years. This is the first time that we've ever seen this. I mean, we've had people come and ask, can they have food? And we always say yes. And we know that people have come when we're not in the garden and taken food, but they don't destroy. You know, destruction is another total issue, right?
It is. I'm really sorry it happened. And, the relationship between Richard's legacy, we actually had Tina Davies on the programme last week, and the effort that you and Brenda and others have put into the garden for this to be the end result, it's really pathetic. I mean, what goes through people's minds? And look, when we were a kid, if you went through a garden and grabbed a carrot and ate it, that was all bad enough. But to haul it all up and flick it around for no good reason is just disgraceful.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's just, I don't know what to say because we're just appalled. And, like, to go yesterday and find lettuce torn up again was just, like, oh my, it really becomes disheartening and hurtful. Like, so much effort goes into this. People are taking time out of their day to come to the garden, to be well, to put their hands in the soil, and have that connection with people who don't judge them. No matter what walk of life you come from, we're a non-judgmental environment. It doesn't matter what your background is.
And nor should it. Maxine, I'm sorry it happened, but I appreciate making time for the show. So are you going to dig back in and continue working with the garden and try to make sure we can restore that accessibility for folks in the ward or wherever they're from?
Well, we are still working the garden, what we can. I mean, obviously it's a bit late in the year, but there are several small crops that we can replant, and hopefully if we get enough good weather over the next month, that we will be able to get some harvest. So lettuce and radishes are like fall crops. They take, a month or so to grow. So it all depends on Mr. Weatherman whether or not they grow, right?
Yeah.
And, so that's where we're kind of at now. And actually, this is our morning for group, and I'm sitting in my car talking to you while some of the people are actually down trying to water in the greenhouse. So, so we will continue to meet as a group, obviously, and we will have our meal per se, but obviously we won't be able to have all of our own vegetables like we normally do.
Appreciate the time this morning. Thank you, Maxine.
Thank you for listening.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you to all your listeners.
My pleasure. All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, break time. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one and say good morning to Robin Wilcox Musselman, a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Graduate Studies at Dalhousie University. And good morning, Robin. You're on the air.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
I just wanted to let people know about a study that I'm doing in Atlantic Canada on climate-induced relocation, and we're looking for participants. So specifically people who have moved, had to relocate due to climate change issues like flooding, erosion, even storm surge and storms that have affected them. Yeah, and so the goal is to understand people's experience relocating in more depth, because we'll probably face more of it in the future with increasing sea level rise and increased storms. And in particular, I'm interested in looking at the connections people have to the places where they live. And research has showed that those connections can sometimes inhibit people from wanting to relocate, but also that attachments to these places have provided stability and security for people. So not a lot has been studied about this area, so trying to find out more about it, and then with the hope that by understanding maybe the role that place attachment can have in a more positive way, that this can help inform policymakers for future people who have to relocate and make it a little bit less stressful and a little bit less traumatic and less negative impacts on their well-being.
Does it matter why people relocated? Because there'd be a variety of reasons. Maybe you're nearing an age where you want to move closer to your family or your grandchildren or healthcare. Maybe it's the inability to get insurance where your property had been destroyed by whether it be sea surge or otherwise. So does it matter the reason why someone relocated?
Well, the focus is on climate-induced risks. So, like I said, flooding, wildfires, erosion. But definitely it could be like not just because that has put you out of your home, but because maybe you're conscious of it and you know that you don't want to face that in the future. And it could be wanting to downsize or relocate closer to family to get more support. But definitely sort of the underlying reason would be climate-induced risk. And we know there's lots of other reasons why people relocate, and Newfoundland has had experience in that, sometimes forced relocation. So we're interested in talking to people with that climate kind of impact in the back of their mind, at least.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess my more specific question is, say, for instance, in Port aux Basques, my home was destroyed by the sea surge. My neighbours might be rebuilding exactly where their homes once stood, but I was nearing that age where I thought moving might be, time. And so that was kind of more specifically what I was asking, but I think your answer clarified that. Robin, if people are so inclined to join your study, what should they do?
Yeah, so they can contact me directly, and my email is rwilcox, so that's RWILLCOC @dal.ca. They could probably Google Robin Wilcox Musselman as well and find out my contact information there. And we do have some posters up in the libraries around the province as well.
And just a very quick question for the potential participants. What sort of time commitment would they have to make to participate?
Yeah, so we are looking for people who are 19 years and older for sure. And the study is 2 interviews. So one is an online interview, about an hour, and then the next would be one in person, probably about an hour and a half. And we do reimburse travel costs if they're required to meet me in a location to interview, like a library or something like that.
Okay, appreciate your time. Good luck with the study. Let us know how it goes.
Okay, thanks so much.
My
Bye
pleasure.
now.
Bye-bye. All right, so Robin Wilcox Musselman, looking for your participation in her study. Let's go to line 5. Ramona, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How about you?
Hanging in there.
Good.
Oh, my. With all the politics going on in the States, I find very, very troubling.
A lot of it obviously is, no question. And I mean, for clarification or for qualification, we obviously have plenty of issues to deal with domestically in our own country, from top to bottom, from the economy on down to social issues. I want to put that out there because people are just going to phone and say, why are you talking about states? Well, conversations from the states get into the minds and the hearts of people in Canada. That's how it goes.
We all got our problems, haven't we? But I think the states got much more problems than we do.
I agree.
Yeah, I find it so troubling. The revenge, it's just, I can't believe I'm going through this. I can't, in this generation, it's unbelievable. I thought lessons were learned after the Holocaust, but this is scary. The threats of revenge, and this guy Kirk, he seems to be radicalized. I never heard of him before, but I find out that teenagers even know about him. But the ones I heard about didn't agree with what he has. Apparently, he has very radical ideas.
Some, and all of it thinly veiled with Christian values or what have you. Look, I mean, you say that a lot of teens know about him. His prime focus was young people. I mean, that's what he was doing with Turning Points USA and his college debates and all those things. So he had a prime focus on trying to bring conservative-leaning youth into the movement, I'll call it, because I'm not really sure how to couch it. But yeah, I knew who he was. And people can talk about his character, things he said. I'm happy to have that conversation. But it's the aftermath of his senseless death that is mind-boggling to me. I don't know why we just can't wait to find out exactly what went on, what the motivation was, a bit more information before we start plotting the Civil War.
I know exactly. Revenge, and his widow, she put the chills through my bones because she sounded like she's revengeful, and this is troubling. Revenge is evil as far as I'm concerned. It just goes through my whole body. I had to turn her off.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm so,
I'm going to give her a little latitude. I mean, husband, father of her children, murdered right in front of her. So I get that she's going to behave one way or the other, and it's not for me to decide how people choose to grieve. But the reactions that are coming far and wide with limited information and plenty of bogus information, and the whole bit about indoctrinated in a university. For the love of God, he went to university for one semester during COVID, which he did it remotely. What kind of indoctrination went on in that period of time from his own home? I mean, just some of the stuff that's going on is not helpful. It's just fanning the flames, which were already burning, and now they're searing.
Oh, yeah, are they ever? It's just time to bring humanity back. It's uncivilized. It's really. The government just needs to get away from the privacy of people and get in order and start governing. Instead of this all two genders, male, female, family not allowed to plan their family. It's just mind-boggling. It's time to stop it. It's way above my head. I just can't comprehend it. It's very, very troubling. And the revenge. It seems that the Trump era is nothing but revenge, and it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and, as Canadians, as much as it's not our country, the United States, but things do have an impact here. They simply do. So let's just be mindful of it. Like even when there was a question asked of the government House leader yesterday about political violence in Canada, it was a very specific question about political violence in Canada. His clip is being shared far and wide, and he's being accused of being some sort of treasonous nuisance because he didn't mention Charlie Kirk. The question was about what's happening in Canada. So if I was asked that, I'd be talking about specific things that we've seen and stories that have been told, and I just find the whole idolatry just kind of weird. And the obsession with trans, like after Mr. Kirk was murdered, we were told right away that it was a trans person. Nobody had any idea, none. And it turns out that's not true. And now they're leaning in on the roommate being trans. Whether even that's true, I don't even know. And then that's his partner, and it's just all a bit much. It's hard on the head.
It's getting out of hand. It's just got nothing to do with. It's just, I don't know. I don't understand it. And Trump. He verbally attacked Zelensky when Zelensky mentioned to him he would feel something about what was going on. I can't remember what exactly went on. He verbally attacked him. He don't know how transgenders are. He don't know how they feel. He's not in their body, and.
Yeah, and I just don't understand why people worry about that so much. Ramona, I appreciate your time and understand your thoughts here. Anything else quickly?
No, that's it. Be well, and I know it's a hard time. We're all going through it.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I'd have a few more thoughts on the Alaska summit between Presidents Trump and Putin. Amazing stuff, really truly is. Let's take a break. When we come back, who's next, Dave? Are we going to go to Gary? No, we're going to go to 5 and talk about the education court. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning to one of the candidates running in Ward 2 here in the city of St. John's. That's Tom Davis. Tom, you're on the air.
Ward 4, Patty.
Ward 4, pardon me. I knew better.
Okay, I know. You got a lot on your brain.
No problem.
Couple of things. Related to the election, the unintended consequence of the provincial election and the municipal elections being at the same time is there's a lot of community leaders who are taken out of the loop. And I really don't hear anybody talking about it, but, you had Bryden Keating on earlier, but there's actually 7 mayors and 2 deputy mayors that have been removed from the, they obviously, you can't run in both. For a lot of people haven't really thought about it, but, the Liberals have 6 people who are presently in council. Obviously, they've had to resign to be able to run. The Conservatives have 6 people, same category, and the NDP have 2. So, the unintended consequences, plus there may have been other people who are running who might have also run to serve their local communities. So, I think I mean, obviously, there's nothing you can do about that now, but going forward, the provincial government, because they have control as to when the municipal elections are, as well as when the provincial elections are, we've got to get these uncoupled, because it's hard enough to get people to run as it is, but when you've got 120 up to 120 municipal, potentially community leaders having to make that tough choice, the unintended consequences is, that their communities potentially suffer.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody talking about it.
Well, there's always going to be some draining of municipal councillors when it comes to provincial elections. The timing is the major concern here. And, with that goes some experience. And people can say, well, my councillor is good or bad or smart or dumb. But experience in the chambers does count, even if we're just talking procedure, because procedure is part of it. We can talk about thoughts and ideas and implementation and spending and all that. But understanding procedure is also part of what makes things work efficiently, or as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. And I know David mentioned that we don't want to have too much talk about council things, so I'm going to move over to take off my council hat and move over to the education accord. And, obviously there's some recent controversy about it, and, I'll leave that where it is. But one thing that I noticed, which really wasn't highlighted to the degree I would like to see it highlighted, is entrepreneurship and small business. I'm the lead for the city with that. And, a lot of people really don't realize, for one reason or another, that 95% of private sector employees in Newfoundland and Labrador work for a small to medium-sized business. That it actually, and so, within the education accord, not saying it's ignored, but it's really paid lip service. Like survival training is spelled out, which, I'm really in favor of first aid, and I guess survival training is a great skill. But when you think about that, that there are between 43,000 and 47,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador who are self-employed. That's either they don't have any employees or they have employees. The fact that we would be, and obviously we know the economic impact, if you just think of companies like Verifin, you can just see how entrepreneurship and having a culture of entrepreneurship can really impact the province's bottom line, both directly for income tax being paid to the province, but also indirectly through the employees and the economic stimulus and the growth in their communities. So I really feel like that was that's something that should have been, in my opinion, should have been front and center in the accord.
Yeah, I think you're right in that it's not a real hard driven home message about entrepreneurship. Financial literacy, digital literacy, identifying misinformation stuff, that's pretty important backbone stuff too, but no argument here about the concept of entrepreneurship and understand what it actually means, because people just think, well, I'm just going to start a business. Well, first, there's a bit more goes into it than that. Identify a need, figure out how to fill it, as opposed to just get a lawyer, get incorporated, and away you go to the races. A quick mention on Verifin. Obviously one of the major success stories in the history of this province. In addition to the entrepreneurial spirit and the innovative ideas that these guys had, I think their workforce, don't quote me, but I think their workforce is somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 85% MUN grads.
They made commitments, and hopefully NASDAQ, who bought Verifin, hopefully they'll continue to honor the commitments that were made to hiring Newfoundlanders, Labradorians, to staying here. But, again, high-tech, leading edge, again, just a great success story. And I don't think we really celebrate business enough. But, getting back to the education classroom, which obviously the Education Accord is trying to meet students where they are. What they have found with a lot of entrepreneurs is they're the children who are disruptive. They're the kids who a lot of times you might have labeled with an ADD or an ADHD label, but they manage to find a path. A lot of really successful tech people, for example, don't finish college. Bill Gates is an example. Steve Jobs is another example. So these guys, I'm sure, would have gotten labeled in the classroom. And I think a big thing that was lost in the Education Accord is figuring out a pathway for those children who challenge everything, who think really differently than the rest of the people, and who have to learn to adapt to the environment that really their brain doesn't really work with. And I really think that there's a straight line between having a pathway, just like there's a pathway for people who maybe they're not super into the books, but they might be really good with their hands, steering them towards trades, which obviously in the future with AI and the impact it's going to have on the white-collar sector, just the fact that we would even have an education system that is designed into creating white-collar people probably is short-sighted, when really where we need to be doing is finding a pathway for each one of our students so that, A, they want to be in class. You don't have to drive them to class, so they feel like they don't have failures, so they feel like they have success. If you go to school and you're in with your cohorts, and amongst your cohorts, people are excelling and you're not, like, that's just feeling a failure. That's what leads to children not wanting to be in school or getting into trouble. And so, I really think the education accord, although I think it's a great direction to start moving in. I really hope that that we don't call this a final report. I hope they're building this as they go along. But I do feel that we need to step back and look at the reality. Like, if you go out in Outport, Newfoundland, Labrador, some communities have very high rate of children being diagnosed with these conditions for one reason or another, like higher than in St. John's, for example. They need way more assistance. I really don't feel like we really drill down enough into what are the needs, what are the mindsets, how can we have children ultimately have success in school, and so that they come out and be productive members of society and aren't gone down some of the paths that some of our children where they don't want to be in school. And as we all know, if you don't go to school, if you don't finish grade 12, like already you're really at a big disadvantage, and the outcomes are generally very negative. Yeah,
interesting about post-secondary and jobs and job creation. Look, it's becoming a very competitive global marketplace, and so additional layers of education are absolutely helpful, and they do stand out on your CV, but that doesn't mean that you need one to create a job. It's simply not the truth. As you mentioned, a couple of notable people who didn't finish college that created thousands of jobs and billions of wealth. All that matters there is a business model, satisfying need, and presented to a lender. They're not going to say, "What? Wait, now you didn't graduate from one. Your idea can't be any good." That's not how it works. But getting a job, working for that job creator, you're very much helped by additional layers of education. Not everyone has to go to MUN, but it does help when people are looking at CVs. Of course, it does.
Yeah, as someone who I started my business while I was in university, and again, it's just that nature of just wanting to go out and, see a need, serve it, work diligently at it, start it with credit cards, or, like a lot of, very few small business owners will start off with this great idea, go to a bank and they give them $1 million. Just not the way it works. Generally, you build it up, you have failures. Sure. And that's all part of what students need to realize, need to be taught as young an age as possible, that it's not what you see on Facebook or in a movie. It's a journey. Life isn't like these big moment where you just get there. It's you look back and you realize what you've accomplished. A lot of times in the moment, all you're doing is just trying to survive or just trying to make payroll or whatever you're trying to do. But it's a beautiful thing for the right personality, and I really hope that the people with the education court. I've already spoken to the department and to the minister about this, what I'm saying now, so this is kind of just reinforcing it province-wide. I really think as a people we need to embrace small business and entrepreneurship and encourage our children when we see that maybe they don't fit into one of these buckets, that this is an excellent bucket for the right person, the right personality, and the right mindset. And I just want to drive that home. And listen, two quick things. Quickly. The fact that Canada Post is not delivering the flyers for candidates is a big disadvantage. It's a big blow to democracy for people, especially people who are less well known, like who aren't incumbents. I think that's inequity. I really call on them to figure out a way to. There's a lot of people who've spent money on flyers who can't get them delivered. I think that's a terrible thing. I just want to send that message out there. I realize I'm not trying to wade into the negotiations, but I hope they can make between Canada Post and the union people. I think they can make. I hope they can make it work. Okay. And also, the people in the city of St. John's are going to be getting your mail-in ballots. You got to send them in by the 24th of September. So please, everybody, encourage everybody to be involved, whatever community you're in. Have your voice heard. Get out and vote, please. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Tom. Take care. Okay, bye-bye. All right. Is it break time, Dave? Okay, so it is. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Bill, you're on the air. Yes, Paddy, how are you? Great today. How about you? Not bad. Listen, I want to talk about the guys that run, the people that are running for the elections in the municipal down there. Like Danny Breen, they've been talking about the economy. Okay. When I get an assessment from my house, he sends the assessment in. Down the bottom, guess what? Costs you $70. You want to go down and contest it. Then now what they couldn't get into the front door, they got into the back door. If you got a sore back up,
guess what? It's going to cost you $1,000 now. One time it was nothing. Now, and what other thing is it? Every time you turn around, Danny Breen and the councillor just bring it up. You should send our checks to the City Hall and Leighton Power. That's what you should send our old age pension stuff like that, because we can't afford what they're doing. There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, the changes to, digging up your front yard to deal with cleaning out of blockages and stuff, those increases are real. I think the whole fee for challenging a property assessment, that's been there a long time, hasn't it?
Not $70.
No, I mean, I remember when I was considering challenging an assessment of my property, and I'm going to say this was 15 years ago. I'm pretty sure it was $40.
No, I don't think so. I think it was only something like 20 or 30. Okay, say go.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, 70 is a lot to challenge what's something that should be challengeable. I mean, there's obviously going to be a fee, but $70 seems like a lot. Pardon?
Why is there going to be a fee? Why? Tell me why.
Well, I mean, we pay administrative fees for, just about everything, I suppose. It's like asking why should there be a fee to close my car deal?
No, Paddy. No, that's different. Now, Paddy, you're going overboard now. I'm talking about a fee of $70 for what?
I heard
for me to go down and say, listen, my house is not worth what you're saying. That's it. No big deal. Who do you got there that's going to answer me? Danny Breen is not going to be there. None of the councillors are going to be there. You got somebody brought in. What? If everybody in St. John's paid $70, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, but you don't present your appeal to a politician. The city of St. John's, unlike the rest of the province, has its own assessment division. So that's who you'd appeal it to. Like if I lived in Bay Roberts, my assessment is done by a municipal assessment agency that does a bunch of communities. The city of St. John's actually has its own division. So if you appeal, that's who you appeal to. You don't speak to Danny Breen or anybody like that or a city manager. You actually speak to an assessor.
Well, they won't take back to the city manager. City manager down there, he got his heels all tore up for putting his feet on the desk. But in the meantime, I got to pay money to get me a wife. I got a water break. I got to pay money for them to come in and turn it off. I got to pay money for them to come in and turn it back on. Come on, Petty, you know what I mean? They're working over every day. They're not laid off none. They got all kinds of equipment over. Give them something to do.
I just agreed with you on that one. And actually, I just agreed with you, but I take yes for an answer. Right, I just I agreed with you on the trying to fix a water main break or a sewer backup. We're on the same page. So, like I just said, take yes for an answer. The assessment division, it's actually technically, I guess, the assessment review court. They call it a court. It's not really a court, but that's where the assessment challenges go.
Yeah, if it's a court like you said, what am I supposed to do? Go down and hire a lawyer because I can't speak for myself. That's what it boils down to. That's crazy, Paddy. $70 for me to go down and say my house is not worth $500,000. Come on, I'm a senior citizen. Like you say, $70. That takes one of my grandchildren enough for dinner every day for 7 weeks. It's $10 a day or $20 a day for 7 weeks. No, they're down there sitting down on their butts and they're saying, no, let's charge them $70 for them to come down. Sure, they're not coming down. Who's going to pay $70 to go down and say my house is not worth it?
It's curious. I wonder how many times people challenge it, and I wonder what the success rate is. I'm going to suggest very few challenge it and very few are successful. I'm going to guess.
But there's no meetings. I never see a meeting here like to go in and talk about it with the new councillor now. You're getting on now. This fella just got on there now. He's talking about education and everything. I know of 4 guys here now in St. John's that are the best operators I ever see in my life. The best. But you don't have grade 12, guess what? Forget about it applying to the city of St. John's. And they can operate anything. And they're good. But you won't get a job in the city of St. John's because they don't have their grade 12. Come on, there's something wrong, Something wrong with the system, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, for some jobs, I suppose there's an educational requirement. And not to say that folks who are operating heavy equipment aren't smart enough to have grade 12, because obviously they are. If anyone who's ever done it, it's a little bit easier. It's harder than it looks, I meant to say. So, yeah, fair enough. Anything else you want to say, Bill?
No, just let it go, Paddy. But
appreciate it.
It's nice talking to you about talking to these crowd down here. Forget about it. They just want to up the raise, up it. That's all they want. Anyway, you have a good day.
You too, buddy. All the best. All right, bye-bye. When we come back, we're talking school buses, and then we're talking about whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2, Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Great show this morning. I don't want to bring up another hot topic, but electric school buses I watched on one of the newscasts last night. I don't know if it was CBC or CTV or NTV, but there was a school bus, and it was all on fire on the inside, but all the students were out at the time, and the fire department was right across the road. It was on the mainland. I don't know where it was at, but I thought, oh, my Lord. So I don't know what kind of school buses we have in Newfoundland and Labrador, but I hope, because the school bus, the company that school department there on the mainland, they had to recall these buses because of something to do with the electrical part was faulty. Oh my! But it had a good story though. There was no students injured. I think the fire department was right across the schoolyard, so they were on right away. The school bus was totally destroyed though. But can you imagine if that started and the kids are in there? I mean, they'd be roasted.
Yeah. I mean, people ask me questions about electric vehicles, whether or not they're more susceptible to fire. The answer to that is no, but they burn so wicked hot, and there's specific training and resources required to put out an electric vehicle fire, a lithium battery fire, compared to trying to put out a fire of my internal combustion engine vehicle. So yeah, I've seen some of those videos kicking around, scary stuff. A lot of it's media sensationalism though too, right? You know, you get a big supply ship carrying a bunch of electric vehicles, a fire starts, they just abandon it because they have no capacity to put it out. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to get on so I don't want to put scare in Newfoundlanders, because I think that our school system, we've got good buses here in the province, so I don't want to scare the people in Newfoundland. That's what I was, but I thought, this is, like you said, maybe the news outlets, they sensationalize stuff on the TV and stuff, but oh yeah, one other thing. Robert Redford, there's one movie that they forgot when they had waiting for the break when Sarah Strickland listed all these movies and you listed some up. There's one of my favorite ones was Jeremiah Johnson.
Fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, so anyhow, you have a wonderful day and go Jays go.
Yeah, go Jays go. 5 games up now, feeling a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah. And you know that Addison Barger? He reminds me a lot of Brooks Robinson. Remember Brooks Robinson?
I'm a little bit too young to remember a lot about Brooks Robinson, but I think that's pretty lofty comparison at this stage of his career. He's a rookie with 20 home runs. I don't know, Brooks Robinson seems pretty generous, but fair enough.
Ridiculous things on third base that Brooks Robinson used to do. He used to dive to the left, get up, and fire to first base, and you were out. And that reminds me of Brooks Robinson. Same type of play. That's so exciting to watch that.
He has an absolute cannon for an arm. He's made some nice plays at third base the last few days too. So yeah, I mean, I like him. Obviously, he's got some pop in his bat. I think he needs a chin strap for his helmet though. Man, that thing bounces off his head.
When he's ready. That's so funny. His helmet goes flying off.
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, well, yeah. So, but anyhow, you have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
And a good show today, so keep it up.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot, Gary. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to Heather Ballard with Rescue NL. Good morning, Heather. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Hello?
I said I'm doing okay. How about you?
Oh.
Heather?
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. Sorry.
No problem.
Don't know what happened there. Hi. Yeah. So I'm calling in about the dogs in Harper Grace, or the animals, I guess. It's more than dogs there. I don't know if you've seen that. It's been all over the media everywhere. Yeah. So have you seen it or no?
Yeah, you sent it to me, didn't you?
No, I didn't send it. I don't know if someone else might have.
Yeah, someone else did then. Yeah, I have seen it. Why don't you describe what the video shows?
Yeah, so basically it's a bunch of animals in a lot of debris. Dogs are chained on very short chains. They're on top of roofs of sheds, garages. It's, it's very unpleasant to watch it. But it's the way these animals are living, and, nothing's being done about it. And, we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes as animal rescue, and, we help animals when we can. We rely on authorities to help us. But when nothing gets done, we have to reach out to the public. And, it's unfortunate that that's what we have to turn to when the laws don't get enforced. But it's absolutely heartbreaking to see these animals in this state and see that nobody's helping. We went through the right channels, and still there's nothing being done for these animals. And I made the call, and I made numerous calls to the RCMP, and I got the runaround. And then I got a call, when was that? Yesterday, I think, or whenever I made the last post. And the RCMP officer told me there was nothing wrong with that situation. They didn't take any animals because there was nothing wrong. And
Heather?
Yeah?
The connection's breaking up. So before we run out of time or lose the connection, describe exactly what was happening to the animals. Dave, I'm going to put Heather on hold, see if we can't get a better line there. Let's see here. A quick check-in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Always get a couple of very rich emails when someone makes mention of anything that goes on in the United States. Oh, my. Let's see here. When we come back, there's a caller in the queue who wants to talk about the resignation of Michael Wilson from the Oversight Panel. And let's see here. Maria Gentle is with the YWCA, wants to talk about the Circle of Distinction. We've had that conversation in the past. So we're going to talk Lara Chavalon and another candidate running a Ward 4. And maybe a further comment from Heather with Rescue NL. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's see if we have a clearer line with Heather on 4. Heather, you're back on the air.
Hi. I think you can hear me now.
We can. Before we run out of time, exactly what's happening to the animals in the video so people know what we're talking about.
So basically, they're not in the proper living conditions. It doesn't meet provincial standards. They're living amongst garbage, debris. Some of the animals are very thin. I mean, you can't even see the animals that are there. Some of them are locked in sheds. They're in cages. They're locked in the house. It's just a very bad situation for these animals. I don't understand why the RCMP are not stepping in and doing things. There's stuff in the Animal Health and Protection Act now that, will protect these animals, that, allows the RCMP to go seize these animals, especially with the new definition of distress that, that was recently passed in the Act. So I don't understand. It's very frustrating why they're telling me and telling everyone that there's nothing wrong. I mean, the video speaks for itself, right? This is a recent video. When people were calling the RCMP, they're saying it's not recent. It is recent. The last 2 videos I posted were Saturday and Sunday. The dogs are crying. Nothing's being done, and it's heartbreaking. It's frustrating. Like, what are we supposed to do if, the people that are supposed to help the animals aren't helping? We can't do it. We don't have the authority to do it. And I'll tell you one other thing, Patty. This will blow your mind. Last night I was on the phone with one of the residents from the area, one of the neighbors of these people. There were gunshots. And I said to, the person I was talking to, I said, are you going to call the police? And they said, what's the point? They don't do anything. So I said to her, I said, I'm going to call the police. Like, that's gunshots. You're in danger, or you could be in danger. I hung up the phone. I called the police, and I said, there's gunshots. Like, you need to go there. Anyway, that was 9:26. 10:02, nobody had still arrived, and it was gunshots. Like, I fear for these residents, and the police are not responding. And so these residents, everything they're saying, it's true. They're not helping the animals. They're not even protecting the residents.
Yeah, I mean, gunshots obviously a criminal matter regarding law enforcement. Law enforcement has plenty of authority too when it comes to the cruelty to animals. It used to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, I seem to remember there were things like special deputies at the SPCA that had authority under the Department of Justice to take animals from unsafe settings, and that's gone by the wayside, is my understanding too. So I don't know who's responsible. I guess municipalities have some municipal bylaws can be enforced by their officers. The province has tons of authority. Law enforcement does too. So I don't know why there's not something being done.
Yeah, if they're trained, and the first time I called, the police officer directed me to municipal enforcement. She said she had been out there and took a dog that was thin and brought it back because it wasn't thin enough. It wasn't emaciated, I guess. So she brought the dog back, but she's seen everything that's going on, and she didn't do anything. She walked away, which, you know, as a police officer, she could have. She chose not to. She directed me to municipal enforcement. You know, he's not trained by the province, so he's not allowed to seize the dogs. So when I contacted him, he went back with the RCMP. They gave him 2 weeks to clean up. But that's not good enough when these dogs are at risk of choking. That's immediate reason to, you know, remove them then. You don't leave them there until something happens. It's so frustrating. It's devastating. And, you know, we don't like to, you know, have to post those things on Facebook and cause public outrage. But when no one's doing anything, what choice do we have? Right? That's what it comes down to. No, we're not trying to cause trouble. But when no one's doing anything, someone has to fight for those animals. And if it has to be us, then we're going to do that.
And I appreciate your time. I'll do some follow-up here with the municipality in particular to see where their heads are on this. And I appreciate you making time for the show, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. I've seen the video. It's pretty disgraceful. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the Executive Director at the YWCA. That's Maria Gentle. Maria, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How about you?
Good, thanks. Good. I'm calling in to talk about the Circle of Distinction Awards. It's just 1 week away.
Fantastic. Give folks the Coles notes about what we're doing, what we're trying to celebrate, and how they can get involved.
Perfect. Well, the Circle of Distinction Awards is YWCA St. John's annual event celebrating community contributions. This year is special. It is celebrating 100 years of YWCA, along with 23 amazing nominees from community in the categories of social justice and advocacy, equity at work, inspired innovation, our Signature Youth Award, which is a Trailblazer Award, and the Lifetime Achievement Award. So people can purchase tickets at www.ywcastjohns.ca. And there you have it.
And how's it going so far? Because I know we spoke once, then you spoke a little bit later, but because I think some of the nominations were slow to come in, so that's changed?
Oh, the nominations are in. Today we posted our final release of the 23rd nominee, and so they are beautifully illustrated by Nikita Morris's graphic design. Nikita is sponsored through the CNA as part of our sponsor, and is a former YWCA participant, captures the nominees beautifully, and so every day from when the nominations close to leading up to the event, we celebrate those nominees, put them open and out to the community, and then we're hoping people are inspired to grab a ticket and join us at the event. It is, you know, in these times when elections are being called, there are, you know, housing crisis, affordability, child care crisis, all of these things that we at YWCA are trying to address. The Circle of Distinction Awards is truly inspiring. It's such an incredible morning. Breakfast is served. There is a charitable donation receipt, and we get to celebrate community, you know, and now more than ever, that's what we need to do. The awards are being hosted by amazing local performing artists, Bernie Stapleton and Amelia Manuel, and, you know, we also wanted to do something unique to celebrate 100 years. You know, they can always have those, like, you know, sepia tone pictures that we kind of look back, but we really wanted to vision forward. So this year, with your ticket, you, again, get to celebrate all of these amazing people, breakfast, and we're featuring a dialogue between Lisa Smith, who's an Indigenous lawyer and community advocate from locally, as well as the CEO of YWCA Canada, Lynn Nizagama, who's going to be joining us and talking about reconciliation. So really a lot to chew on, some deep reflection and a lot of, you know, celebration as well.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the update here this morning. I'll have a look for the release to see that if I recognize, and I'm sure I will recognize some of the names that are in the running to be recognized in the Circle of Distinction. Anything else this morning, Maria?
No, we have a few tickets left, so we want to make sure folks can join us. You can go to www.ywcastjohns.ca. If people want to grab a table, there's a few tables left at a discount price. Use the promo code CELEBRATE, and we hope to see people there. It's going to be another amazing morning. It never seems to fail.
Sounds terrific. Good luck with it. Thank you, Maria.
Thanks, Patty. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 4 to give morning to one of the other candidates award for. That's Trini Bragg. Trini, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Grand today. How about you?
I'm best kind. Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Happy to do it.
I wanted to come on this morning really to introduce myself to your viewers and also the people of St. John's. So as you mentioned, I'm Trini Bragg, and I'm running for St. John's City Councillor for Ward 4. Ward 4, I live in Ward 4. I've lived in the city all my life. I'm very invested and interested in the city, and certainly a lot of the issues that are happening here now. And I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I think I have a lot to contribute, and I have a very long history of community involvement and community engagement. And I really want to get involved and, start looking forward. I think a lot of people are looking for some fresh perspectives, looking for new and innovative ideas, and working towards solutions from different angles.
Through all of those innovative ideas and different angles and things, give us a couple of quick examples of what you mean by that, Trini.
Well, I think, talking to people, my neighbors, people in Ward 4, probably the two biggest, we have a lot of problems here in the city right now. The two biggest, I would say, that continually come up are housing and public safety. We're not living in the good old St. John's of years past where it was considered, one of the safest cities to live. We're having issues with public safety on a daily basis. We're hearing it on your show. We're seeing it on the news. I certainly don't. I think that these are very big problems, and I think big problems require big solutions. These are not problems that cropped up overnight. They've been a long time in the making. There are issues that continually come up at council, and I think we've really got to start hitting them head on. And, I'd really like to be able to address them and support initiatives that are moving in the direction of coming up with some of these, some solutions for the problems that we're facing in these areas. Public safety obviously is a big one. You've got kids walking the trails to school. You have people who used to walk the trails who don't do it anymore. I used to walk them myself with my AirPods in. I now tend to walk on the city streets. But, the city has changed a lot, and it doesn't matter kind of what time of day it is. Usually, bad stuff happens under the cloak of darkness. But, we're having a lot of incidences here in broad daylight. And I think people, these are very prominent issues that people want to see us at least moving in a direction to where they're addressed. People are talking about them, but let's move in a direction where we're starting to address them.
On public safety, and this is a question that I ask all municipal candidates, is what's the municipality's role in said public safety? Because by and large, it's individual responsibility and then it's law enforcement. So what do you think the municipality could be doing that it's not doing?
Well, there's been some talk of having private security in parks and stuff. A lot of these issues that we're facing in terms of public safety, if we go back, are a product of the mental health and addictions crisis here within the city. And they're a byproduct of that. So I'm not. I certainly don't have all the answers in terms of what the municipality is responsible for, in terms of what they can do about it. I know that very similar to the call I just heard, that lady Heather that called in. Our law enforcement is stretched, and they're stretched very thin. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city, and so things are happening, and law enforcement isn't responding. So these are complex issues. I don't think that there are easy answers, and I don't think that there are quick fixes at all. Mm-hmm. I wish there were. But there aren't. As I said, these aren't issues that have cropped up overnight. They've been a long time in the making. For me, one of the reasons that I really wanted to throw my hat in the ring is looking around, and as I said, I've spent my entire life in the city of St. John's, and I'm kind of looking and saying to myself, how did we get from there to here? It used to be one of the safest cities. You let your kids kind of run free. There was no issues going out late at night and getting groceries or walking the streets. These are all things that you have to factor in and consider now when you're going to do these things. It's everywhere. There is no safe neighborhood. It's impacting us all in one way, shape, or form. And, I think that it's an issue that's weighing very heavily on a lot of the people in the city. I know I certainly don't do things that I used to do. It's a concern for me. My mom is going to be, say, 83 years old. She likes to be out and about and shopping and walking. And then I look at, longtime friends or family. I have 3 small nieces and longtime friends who have kids growing up in the school system and these type of things going on, and they're leaving at lunchtime and taking these trails.
Right.
I think, like I said, I think they're not cut and dry and they're not black and white. These are complex issues that have occurred over a long period of time. I would just like to see people really talking about these issues and some action behind the words.
Absolutely. Trini, I'm off to the news break, but congratulations on taking a swing at it, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Patty, and I'd love to come back and talk to you some more about the issues.
Sounds good. Thank you, Trini.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, Michael Wilson's resignation, the MOU, and the impact on the upcoming vote, and whatever you want to talk about.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to the Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. That's Nancy Reid. Hi, Nancy. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for taking my call today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I, today, get to do something that I don't often get to do on Open Line. And today I want to call in and celebrate something that I think is really important and a good news story for the community of persons with disabilities. I want to celebrate and highlight an announcement that was made yesterday. There was a news release midday yesterday from our provincial government, and it's around L'Arche Avalon. First of all, I want to say that I am not a member of L'Arche or even a spokesperson of the organization, but in my role as an advocate for persons with disabilities in Newfoundland and Labrador, I really want to bring attention to this release. For folks who don't know, and again, I'm not a spokesperson, but L'Arche is a nonprofit organization that operates in communities in this country, throughout Canada, including a number in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and they also have other branches throughout the world. L'Arche, at its core, enables people with intellectual disabilities and those without intellectual disabilities to live together in respectful, dignified community environments in homes that really feel like family, and where people are supported and recognized and valued for who they are and what they bring to the room. I have witnessed some tireless work by L'Arche volunteers over the years, and today I really want to congratulate them for successes that they're realizing today, and also to express my gratitude for the work and for their vision that really got us to where we are today.
We've had some conversations on the show about L'Arche Avalon, promoting some of the fundraising initiatives and what have you. Mm-hmm. The lady's name escapes me. Shirley McKinnon? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wouldn't quote the names. I'm not sure who's there now.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah. But today, Patty, I really want to say that the announcement that was made yesterday is new. It's great. And I wasn't sure if anybody had come on the program already to talk about it. So if not, if they have, I apologize for repeating it. But again, it's worth mentioning. Yesterday, our provincial governments and federal governments together announced an investment toward the building, of 2 8-unit homes in the Pleasantville, or the Charter area, Charter Avenue in Pleasantville area. And those 2 8-unit homes will include 16 units in total, okay? And of those, The 4 on the main level will be barrier-free and accessible units, while the upper floors will each have 4 units that are guided by universal design principles. So again, really thinking about designing for all, ensuring that these spaces are ones that are available to people who may not typically be easily able to live in some of the existing facilities and homes that we have. But beyond that, what I'm again really pleased by is the actual dollar amount that's come with this announcement. It's a significant funding commitment that I'm seeing, at least. In it, the province said that it will provide 50% of capital construction costs up to $2 million, and the federal government will come in with $912,000. Again, that $2 million from the province represents, up to 50% or 50% of the capital cost, but that's a significant number. But beyond that, and something from the not-for-profit, administration world that we recognize, is that these buildings and these opportunities will need continual funding, operational funding to exist. And the province has made a commitment of funding $1.6 million annually for these 2 homes in Ontario Avenue, and that begins in 2027-28. So I just really needed to let people know, we're hearing so many things in the news lately, and for good reason. There's been lots of announcements and many concerns. But when I hear something that's as positive and as important to our community and to this community itself as this, I really needed to make sure that it didn't get lost in all of the moments that we're experiencing today.
Little good news goes a long way, Nancy. I'm glad you called this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, so it's a bit early for the break. We're going to take it when we come back. PJ's there to talk about Michael Wilson's resignation. Robin also wants to talk about the MOU. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Robin, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for having me on.
No problem.
Well, we all know that we are going to be voting soon in our provincial election. And right now we're presented with alternatives. One party that says that, they want to go forward with the MOU, and one party that says that they don't want to. I am kind of really tired of political rhetoric, and what I'm seeking is actual substantial information and where we find it. I know there are a lot of people right now hurting in Newfoundland, financially, physically, mentally, healthcare workers that are working overtime, too much, our new international residents who don't have places to live. And I know that signing the MOU and having that money now would help a lot of people. So those are actual problems. But my understanding is from the PC representative is that we don't want to make a mistake again. And I feel the same way. But are those potential problems? So basically, where do we go, Patty, to find the information, the solid information where we can make a good choice? I don't want rhetoric. I want solid numbers to tell me what I should be voting for.
Fair enough. Just a couple of things. So you say one party wants to proceed and one doesn't. Not to be nitpicking, but the Tories don't.
I understand.
Yeah, the Tories don't really say that. They just say they want to pause. And
they want to pause.
Yeah, because I've never heard them really say much about the actual contents of the MOU, as opposed to simply want an independent evaluation of. And then it's the concept of a referendum, which is a tricky piece of business, I would suggest.
Oh, absolutely.
So have you read the MOU itself?
I have not. And where do I go to find that?
Let's see. I mean, if you just Googled Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding, you'll go right to it. I can't remember the name of the website right off the top of my head. And same thing if you go to Hydro. There's, I think, a relatively helpful question and answer content on the Hydro website itself. And I think it's just nlhydro.com. Good to know, the Churchill Falls MOU, something like that. So if you just Google Upper Churchill MOU, you'll absolutely go right to the government's created webpage and find it there. There's a lot of technical stuff in it, but it is a relatively straightforward read, and it's not 500 pages either, so you can get through it through the course of picking away at it through the course of an afternoon. Lots of information there, still not every single detail that will end up in the contract, but plenty of good base understanding of what we're talking about.
Okay, so I can go there, and I know that there's been ads put out from other parties as well to say, no, we shouldn't go, we should stop and reevaluate. Have they put out a platform where they're saying this is why we shouldn't?
Some. There's, most people are hanging their hat on value. Price and cost and value and just the general concept of did we get the best deal. There's some concerns about fixed cap for monies coming to the province. There's some concerns with the term of the contract, which is at minimum of 50 years. There's some concerns about the Hydro-Quebec having full control over decision-making about whether or not we proceed with Gull. Some concerns about, whether or not the escalator clause is going to reflect market value into the future, and that's Schedule F, and it's pretty clear. Actually, it just popped in my head at the website. It's just called ourchapter.ca. You put that in, you go right to the 32-page text of the MOU.
Okay, perfect. And I would like, I don't like, we've heard enough rhetoric online from our counterparts down south, and I just want to be able to look at the facts, to be able to say, okay, no, I think this is the best way we should go, and I think it's fair that we should do that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I've said this in the past, and I'm going to stick with it, is that for those who are full-throated in support of the Memorandum of Understanding, there is some potential exaggerations there. The exact same can be said for those who are talking about some of the negative consequences or what is included in the MOU. So I'm with you. I think your base point is I really just want to talk about the facts. The issues of hypotheticals, they can and should be considered on many fronts, but like price elasticity and stuff, there's facts inside the MOU that I think are important to consider here. And the whole general opinion as to whether or not it's the best deal possible, if you ask 10 different big groups like JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs and TED and RBC, you probably get a lot of varying opinions on that front. So you're right, the rhetoric has been unhelpful from either side of this particular coin, and the facts seem elusive.
Right. Well, that's really good summary. Thank you so much.
I appreciate making time for the show. So check out ourchapter.ca. And this is not a thumbs up or thumbs down. That's simply the text of the MOU for your consideration.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Robin.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to line number 3. Good morning, PJ. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Patty. I wanted to call today and talk about the MOU, of course, and because there's obviously some recent developments that come to mind, one being the Wilson letter, the second being the second group of 9, which I call it a second group with distinction, and of course the nation building project list that came out, which doesn't have Gull Island on it at the moment. So if I could, I'm going to start with the Wilson letter, because I think this one is something that the general voters now that the election is called would find helpful for them to get a handle on this MOU. And I'm going to talk about Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson obviously was brought into that panel because he's financial background, his expertise. He's a third member. The one member is a lawyer, one member is an engineer. Mr. Wilson was the accountant, financial person. Obviously, people know he stepped away from that, and he wrote a letter because he found information that it was just unpalatable for him to continue. Of course, we know the government released a letter, but they blacked out a lot of information. Now that the election is called, I'd like to throw out there, I believe, because Mr. Wilson is trying to speak truth to power, which is very, very important now in this equation, right? Because this is a multi-generational decision. He's the only one in Newfoundland and Labrador, can you believe it, that is capable, because he was on the inside, he has the information now, and willing to speak truth to power. He's willing to speak truth to the Premier and say, these are the problems that he sees here, and the Premier is not allowing him to speak, not allowing to release the letter. So the politicians come knocking on your door, You can ask them, do you support the release of Mr. Wilson's letter? Yes or no? And ask them, what are they going to do about it? Are they going to contact Mr. Hogan to have it released? And that's a question that I think most people now will have an opportunity to do as the door knocking starts today.
Yeah, we can have an opinion on that one way or the other. The ultimate question boils back down to, will the government release Mr. Wilson from his confidentiality agreement? Because people can think yes, no, should or should not. But unless that actual legal issue is addressed, then it doesn't matter what we all think, because he signed the NDA or confidentiality agreement. So unless that goes away, we are where we are. And I think the letter should be released in full. And I'll tell you why is... there's lots of high-level thoughts as to what Mr. Wilson thinks, but very specific issues that have been broached in that letter that we have not seen, that would give people a real understanding of what we're talking about, as opposed to the process is flawed. Because that can mean 1,000 things.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why it's very critical. He's the only one that can speak truth to power now on this. Other people, like I have my opinions on it. I've studied these type of cases before in my work background. And I see it's full of holes. It's like a piece of Swiss cheese, Patty. All kinds of holes in there that are to the detriment of Newfoundland. But he has been on the inside, and he's the only person in Newfoundland right now that's willing. Nobody at Hydro is willing to speak up on it. Nobody at Confederation Building is willing to speak on it. So what that means is you can understand those people at Hydro and Confederation Building, they want to protect their jobs. They're fear of retaliation and all that jazz. But Mr. Wilson has nothing to lose, but he has the information, and people really should work towards getting that released. And I think with the election call, they do just have that opportunity. I just wanted to move on to the second topic on the second group of 9. I call them second group of 9 with a distinction because obviously they're more active in the business community now. You can Google them, as I did, and find out who they are, of course, and what their business affiliations are. But I think what the distinction is, one of them was interviewed Friday, and they are going to use their political donations in favor of the individuals who are currently will support the MOU.
Yep.
So that means basically the Liberals, right, will support it in its current state, whereas the PCs want it to be further studied. So I took from that, at least one of the 9 are going to be only handing out political donations, wealth that they have, to candidates who are in favor of the MOU. That is a distinction, I think, from the first group of 9, who don't want to politicize this. They're more concerned about the multi-generational impact on this.
I think that's given them an awful lot of leeway. We don't know whether or not they're going to use their own personal wealth to support one party or another. I mean, they certainly didn't make that declaration, unlike the second group. PJ, it's 12 o'clock almost right on the dot, so we have to leave it there, but you're welcome to come back on the show to keep this conversation going, okay?
Oh, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, PJ. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.